and it was just like yesterday. She is well respected globally in the field, and wherever I go, the Prime Minister or President of the country say, "You can't lend her to me. You can't give her to me. I'd love to have her." And I say, "Absolutely not." She's indeed a star in foreign affairs and trade matters. I'm also joined with another minister of equal competence and regard globally, a man who will tell you that he has spent many years doing banking in the Middle East, and he knows that area very well, and he has brought that experience to bear in the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce, Senator Aubin Hill, our Minister of Investment and Commerce. We are joined as well by the team from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, which was previously introduced, but I want to make special mention of the High Commissioner to Trinidad, Mrs. Natalie Rodriguez-Campbell. Please stand, Natalie, so that they can see you. If you have any problem, she is a lady. She is a lady. So, I mean, she does deal with the diplomatic issues, but she deals with the consular issues as well, and she takes care of all the issues that our Jamaicans overseas in the regions for which she covers, she addresses those matters. Now, as I survey the audience, I'm seeing lots of young people, so I suspect that you are here for school. I was told that there is a medical school here, so I'm seeing the medical students. Some of you are here for law. No, law. Nobody's in the law school. All doctors? Whoa. Show of hands? Oh my. That's amazing. That's amazing. Nurses? No, that's very good. Absolutely. Excellent. Excellent. And then others are working here in oil and gas, in hospitality, in administration, medicine. Doctors, again. Excellent, excellent. Now, Guyana is doing exceptionally well. Guyana has, it's a large country. Guyana is about the size of the United Kingdom. So it is a large country. And it has managed its natural resources very well in protecting its forests. It is a carbon sink. It is important as a part of the lungs of the world, essentially. And they have also now discovered energy resources in oil and natural gas offshore. And that generates a reliable source of revenues for a number of decades to come. And President Ali is someone who I consider to be a visionary leader. He understands that the creation of wealth requires deep thinking, deep thought, and he's going about the structuring and use of those resources in a way that is very enlightened and will secure Guyana's future for a very long time. In Jamaica, we are also going through our own economic transformation. We have not yet discovered oil. And I know some of you have been following in the press where you see that we're doing exploration. In my brief, there is a term which says that there is a very promising petroleum system offshore Jamaica. And it's possible. It's possible. It's quite possible. But we don't hitch our wagons to that. The truth is that we have also been blessed by mineral wealth. More than 50 years ago, we too had a booming natural resource that was giving us a reliable source of revenue in bauxite. It is debatable as to how well it was managed and whether or not we use those resources wisely. And I don't intend to get into that debate here today. But what I would want to leave in your minds is that, development is not only about the resources you're given. It is more so about the decisions you make about those resources. Some of the wealthiest countries in the world do not have mineral resources. And I want you to think about that for a moment. And some of the poorest countries in the world have incredible mineral resources. I mean, you just have to look at Singapore and the DRC, for example. So the important thing then it is what the leaders do and what the people do. And when it comes to leadership and the people, their civilization, and what they create, I have been saying in conversations with various Jamaican stakeholders is that there is a particular resource. It is natural, but it is not naturally occurring. It is not in the ground. It is not in the air. It is a resource that we create by how we act. And that resource is called efficiency. Efficiency is a resource. And I want you to follow me on what I'm about to say. There is no efficient country that is poor. Yes, there's no country that is efficient that is poor. The basis of wealth, the basis of addressing poverty sustainably, the basis of getting economic growth and social justice is an efficient public bureaucracy. So, how do you create efficiency? And that is a question that I think all Jamaicans need to ask themselves. Is efficiency then a cultural thing? Meaning, is it that some people have a culture that is efficient and some people have a culture that is not? Why is Singapore doing well, and we're not doing so well, starting at the same level over 60 years ago, similar challenges? What is it? Singapore doesn't have oil, they don't have bauxite, it's the size of St. James. What is it? What did we do and what did they do? These are questions, as a people, we need to confront ourselves with. All right? So, I would say this to you as students. You are studying, you are pursuing the acquisition of knowledge through a structured academic framework. And you would recognize that in everything that you do, you have to have an optimizing culture. You have to make decisions about how you use your time to study versus doing other things. In other words, you have to develop an economizing culture. Respect for time, respect for resources, respect for structure, respect for leadership, setting targets, getting them done. Economizing, optimizing. And we clearly, there is a sense in our culture that to be economistic is probably almost a bad thing. And just at the cultural level, we need to break that. There's nothing wrong with being calculated, structured, orderly, timely, frugal. All of these words are not generally associated with Jamaican culture. But if we are going to truly change society, we must get these things associated with being Jamaican. I give it to you in this way. Whenever you say, I'm a Jamaican, you say, Usain Bolt, fastest man. What we need to do is to take that and say, Jamaicans, man, the fastest people at doing business. Can you imagine if that cultural shift were to happen? Jamaica, man, we know for our music. Jamaica, no problem, man. Irie. But can you imagine if we shifted that as well and brought into our word matrix? Jamaican people, very efficient. Because, yes, when we go abroad and people see us, they say, Jamaican people, hardworking. That's a cultural thing, isn't it? So what is wrong with getting efficiency as a cultural identification of Jamaicans? That's what we need. That's a resource. Because remember now, all the other things that we are known for has created our brand. And what has our brand been doing? It is the brand that brings tourists to our island, that make people buy the things that we produce. It's the brand that gives us diplomatic access, part of our paradiplomacy. So we need to, as a people, start to create and nurture this resource of efficiency. To get it as a part of our brand. All right? So I start with the resource of efficiency, but we can build on that to deal with things like productivity. And because the more efficient you get, the more productive you become. And in the latest statistics that we have seen, Jamaica is the third least productive country in the region. I've said it in a convoluted way because I intend to be euphemistic about the situation. But that's the reality. So in as much as we are the fastest people and we have the greatest culture and so forth, it really matters not because we're not being the most productive. So we need to have a pro-growth, pro-social, pro-economy culture. And there are some things that are in our culture which prevents us from fully realizing this pro-efficiency culture. And one of them is our view of work. There are many Jamaicans who still view work as exploitation. And it's understandable because given our history of being worked without being paid, you're not going to get over that very easily. We have had to resist that. And the idea of resisting oppression, resisting enslavement, resisting social injustice is part of the definition of the Jamaican culture. We wrestle with that every day. That's part of what defines us. But we are at a stage now as a country where we need to understand that we as a people, we need to be able to convert our labor, our effort efficiently into output. That nothing that we want is going to be given to us. Yes, we were the victims of historic injustices. But today, we are in charge of our own destiny. So we have to move from considering ourselves victims to considering ourselves as people with agency, the independence and the ability to make the most of the resources that we have, and we're going to make the most of our resources efficiently, where we're going to not just work hard in sweat, but we're going to work hard in mind. That's a mindset change that needs to happen. So there needs to be a new work ethic in our society. And I say this to members of the diaspora because as you are exposed to other cultures, you begin to see the work ethic of other people and other cultures. And you can compare it with yours. And you can see, is it the same work ethic in Jamaica, or is it a better work ethic, or is our work ethic better than theirs? Right? Now, for Jamaica, we too are experiencing the first phase of economic recovery. I can't say economic boom because it's not a boom. All right? We are going to have to work hard, not just physically, but strategically, smarter, in order to overcome the challenges that we have. And let me set it out for you in this way. So yes, we have had bauxite and we have had tourism. And those would have generated some revenues. But we didn't put in place the systems and the structures to properly capitalize on those. So we did lose quite a bit from that. And for many years, many decades actually, the way in which we structured our economic system was inefficient. And that inefficiency was justified to say, hey, we are doing things this way because we are looking out for the poor. But as it turned out, those ways of structuring our economy never helped the poor. It was not until 15 years ago that we found ourselves on the brink of collapsing that we said, you know what? We have to change our economic system. Because the way in which we had structured it, it's not helping the poor at all. So there was a view that we can borrow our way to development, and then when we can't pay it back, we said we are caught in a debt trap. The global world had no pity on us for that. Essentially, they said, listen, you need to get your house in order. And we had to do that. We went through a period of austerity. We ran what was called a high primary surplus, meaning that we decided that we would spend less on social services, on infrastructure development, and we would pay down our debt so that we could get to a point where our revenues would be enough to pay down debt and still have a little bit to pursue development. And we have been doing now that for a decade and a half, and we have managed to bring down our debt. We have put in place new strategies in managing our economy. We used to be so nervous about the dollar falling. Now, I don't hear anybody talk about foreign exchange issues anymore. There's no foreign exchange shortage. The dollar has been stable for a little while. Yeah. We used to hear quarrels about interest rates. Interest rates have been stable. We used to hear people complain about the inflation rate. We have managed to keep inflation stable. So we have changed the economic model. The government is more efficient in that regard. And so now we are at a point where we can focus on some other things. So let's look at these other things. Crime, security in the society, housing, health, education, energy, environment, and infrastructure. Did I leave anything out? I think I covered most things. So we have addressed the economy, and we're getting good results from the economy. The dividend from good economic management, we then used it to pump into security. We tripled the national security budget. We transformed the JCF and the JDF. People don't, you may not know this, but the JCF has never reached its establishment. And the level of attrition in the JCF was very high. Now, we have moved the JCF from just under 11,000 members to its establishment of 14,000 members. And now recruitment is higher than attrition, meaning that more people are choosing to join the JCF than are leaving. The JCF is the premier law enforcement institution in the English-speaking Caribbean. No one can contest that. Countries are calling us, asking us to come and assist in policing in their jurisdictions, and we're helping. Of course, there are problems with the JCF. Of course, if you listen to our media, you would think, everything is a problem, everything is negative, everything is falling apart. So I listen to that, of course, because there are a lot of issues. But I invite you to step back and look at what was and what is, because that's how you measure progress. And you can't contest this, that you have more police doing more policing more effectively, using more intelligence and using more data, and being far more effective in their kinetic operations. And they are getting on top of the criminals. The criminals can't turn without the police being there. Before, I used to describe it this way, that the criminals had more capabilities and capacity than the police. That's what was the issue before. If the criminals challenged the police, there was a 50-50 chance that the criminal could win or escape. That is not the case anymore. We have changed the risk-reward for people being involved in crime. So if you challenge the police, the probability of you winning or escaping is closer to zero. Police is effective. Is there more to do? Lots more to do. Right now, the hot topic is when are we going to expand the number of body-worn cameras? And we're working on that. We have 1,000 deployed. We have 1,000 in procurement, and we will continue to procure and build institutions. So you're going to see a JCF where a body-worn camera is just part of the kit of the police as they carry a firearm. you're going to see greater deployment of less lethal weapons so that they can interact with citizens, subdue threats without taking lives. When are we going to have more CCTV cameras deployed? That's being done right now. It takes a lot of time to deploy it, but it's being done. Why do you think the crime is coming down? Because we have some of those capabilities. There used to be complaints about the mobility of the police. I don't hear when last anybody say, oh, the police doesn't have a car, this, that, and that. No, we've invested heavily in that. So the economic efficiency that we're gaining, the dividends from that, we have put it into security. And that is why we have moved the murder rate from 54 per 100,000 to 24 per 100,000 as of today. I want you to follow me now. We used to be the number one or number two. Only Venezuela would be higher than us. All right? And El Salvador. So El Salvador has moved their murder rate down to something like 3 or 4 per 100,000. So we still have a way to go, but we didn't use the El Salvador model. Right? So ours is steady progress, steady progress, steady progress, and we're making steady progress. Why? We are focusing on something called organized violence. So you have social violence and you have organized violence. Who are the purveyors of organized violence? Gangs. And so we are focused on eliminating gangs. Gangs are not only a threat citizen to citizen, gangs are a threat citizen to state. So it's one thing for you and your girlfriend, or two friends get into a fight, one stab somebody, one dies. That's citizen to citizen. The challenge with gangs is that they organize to weaken the state. Every officer they bribe, every port they enter illegally, every drugs and guns that they import, all of these things are threats to the state. And so we are eradicating that threat to the state. Now what we're seeing is that a larger portion of the violence and murders are social now, citizen to citizen. Intimate partner violence, public disorder, all kinds of issues. Two men playing dominoes, one slammed the domino on the table too hard, the beer spill. Next man gets up, turn over the domino table. Other man says, why you do that? And before you know it, they are in a fight. One pulls a knife, stabs the other. That gets onto the murder rate. And that is why now we have introduced a new portfolio in the Ministry of National Security called Peace. We have to build peace in the society. Because we're not able as a people to resolve our conflicts without violence. And that is a challenge that we have. So we are going to be focusing on this. As we reduce the organized violence, we have to address the social violence. And the root of the social violence, of course, is the history of, you can't escape talking about enslavement as to what that has had on our psyche as a people, and the use of violence to coerce compliance. But that has also been deeply embedded in how we, for example, discipline our children. So the use of corporal punishment to discipline children is essentially a reinforcement of violence to get compliance or violence to get justice. And that we have to change. I know when I say that, there are those who look at it and say, I was beaten as a child and look how I came out. Yeah, you may have turned out very well, but there are many who did not turn out very well. There are many Jamaicans who are struggling with abuse, struggling. They don't know how to deal with it. And the violence that was meted out to them, they are meting it out to others, and we have to change that in our society. Intimate partner violence. When we say in Jamaica, man and woman business, again, we've reinforced that to say, the man beat you because him love you. And what we are seeing too is that there are many men coming forward now to say that they are also being abused. These are real issues, and it affects the mental health of the people in our country, and it perpetuates this social violence. So that has to be addressed. Now, can you imagine less murders, less people struggling with violence, how the quality of life of Jamaica would change? All right? That is not going to happen snap of a finger. It's going to take time, but our target is that within the next 5 to 10 years, you will see a visibly different Jamaica if our people are able to resolve their conflicts without violence. And you might say, so what are we doing? We have invested heavily, for example, in community justice programs. So we have a very excellent program of Minister Truck's restorative justice program. So we have restorative justice facilities and mediation in many communities across Jamaica. And so these are the kinds of things that we're doing that will have an impact on the issue of social violence. Now, so I think we can say that Jamaica in the last decade has made great progress on reducing violence in the society, less aggressive, less murderous society, and we're seeing the results of that in, for example, the upgrade in our travel advisories. All right? Now, immediately, if you move from a level 4 or a level 3 to a level 2, a lot of people wouldn't understand this. But if a convention were deciding to come to Jamaica with 1,000 people, and that convention has to provide insurance for the people who are coming, and they look at the travel advisory and they see, well, there's a travel advisory that says don't travel, travel at your own risk. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to go elsewhere. All right? And that's how, for example, I'm just using this as one example of how reducing violence improves economic outcome. Because now more people are going to say, Jamaica is safer, let's come to Jamaica. All right? Back home, people don't get this. But if we were to reduce our murder to 0, the reason why you were upset and angry in the first place because you didn't have any money, that would go. In other words, there is a sense that the people who are involved in scamming and extortion, that this is a social justice endeavor. I'm trying to get my own because the society not giving me any, or I was deprived of it, and therefore I'm going to take it by violence. But if we could get a social compact that you don't need to use violence to get your economic reward, you would immediately see that economic reward materialize. However, if the culture of work doesn't change, and people say, I am not going to work for that wage, I am going to steal for it, or scam for it, or extort for it, then we have a problem. So you see why the two things are important. A shift in the culture, a new work ethic, absolutely important. The other area in which we have to pay great attention to is education and health. For 30 years we did not build a hospital. Yeah, for 30 years we did not build a hospital. When it comes to education, the situation is, by the way, how much time do I have? Look, just tell when to stop.
10 more minutes and then maybe a few questions.
And you know what? I think I've stimulated you enough. So for 30 years, it's not often that I get a group like this to just carry us through where Jamaica is, how we're strategically changing Jamaica. So we didn't build hospitals for 30 years. We couldn't. We just didn't have the money. Since my administration, we're doing Cornwall Regional. That's another story, but Cornwall. By the way, Cornwall Regional was built 50 years ago. What I have learned from Cornwall Regional, don't repair any new hospital. Knock it down and build a new one. Just build a new one. Because no matter what you do, you go in, the wall looks strong, everything looks good, the plumbing looks like it. Well, by the time you start, you pull one thing, you have to pull another thing, you have to pull and just knock it down, build a new one. And that's what we have learned. And so for KPH, we're not going into repair. We have acquired land beside KPH. We're looking to acquire other pieces of land, and we're going to build a new wing, build and replace. We have decided that is what we're going to do. So KPH hospital, that's almost 200 years old or more. We're going to build a new one. At Spanish Town Hospital, again, the same thing. We're building a new wing. At UWI, we're doing similar things. Yeah. Well, the gift from the Chinese, I'm talking about what we're building. Yeah, but the Chinese have given us a new hospital, which is the Western Regional Adolescent Hospital. It will probably be a hospital for the entire Caribbean when it is finished. But we're going to rebuild 3 new hospitals under NARA. And you have heard a lot about NARA. So we're going to rebuild the Black River, Noel Homes, and the Falmouth Hospital. And of course, KPH is in that as well. Not to mention numerous clinics and type 5 health centers and likely another facility in Portmore. So a very extensive capital investment in health. But since I'm talking to a lot of doctors here, the issue in healthcare has as much to do with the availability of space and equipment as it has to do with the care in healthcare, the treatment of the patient. And I'm not now talking about the medical treatment, because I think we have to give our doctors and nurses their prop, right? They know their stuff, right? They treat with their patients given the resource constraints. But the issue is, healthcare is more about, it's about the surgery and the operation, but bedside manners and just empathy matters a lot. And what we get from the public, it is not how they're cared for in terms of the medical care. It is how they are cared for in terms of how long they have to wait, how they are spoken to, and how they are handled and dismissed or turned away. And I think that has to change. So as I know there are a lot of medical students here and doctors, I implore you to consider that part of your training equally as important and recuperative as the actual medical care that you give. Because the issue with healthcare in Jamaica now, it is the care in the healthcare that is becoming a challenge. In education, we haven't really built any. Well, when I was Minister of Education, we built a few facilities. But in the last, let's say, 10 years or so, we haven't really built any new facilities. But here's the challenge with education. The challenge with education is that the education infrastructure is old and creaking and cannot carry the population that we need to train to the level of training and education that is needed. So in education, you look at community and the home, you look at educational leadership, the principal and the administration of the school. You look at the teacher and the curriculum, and then you look at students and behavior, and then you look at the plant. I can't go through everything, but I just want to look at the plant, because the school plant also has an impact on learning, right? The school plant has an impact on learning. And what we're finding in Jamaica is that there are many school plants which are not conducive to learning. That's number one. We had a thing that we call a multi-class or multi-form classroom. So it's just a classroom with children of different ages and stages by one teacher. That can't continue because of the size of the school and these kinds of things. And then you have the hall divided by, like this one. There's no way children can learn. And then the schools are built like bunkers. So you can't really, customize. Collaborative learning can't really take place. It's just designed for a kind of didactic, where you are here, I am teaching, and you are learning. All right? So just the ergonomics of it doesn't help, because nowadays that's not how we learn. All right? It's very hard to retrofit them, to put in the broadband and the wireless and the computers and all the things that they will need. Now, I don't know, but when I was growing up, my classroom wasn't so hot. No, I don't remember that. I went to Spanish Town Primary, 60 kids in my school. We sat on a little bench in my classroom, 60 kids. I just never felt that hot. No, I visit some schools and I go into the classroom. Maybe it's because I wear that jacket. Maybe that's the case. And it is super hot. So obviously, the design of this school, it's just not taking into consideration these other environmental, and it's dusty. It's sometimes the windows don't work to keep the water out when it rains. It's dark. So which is why we have a program to build 7 schools. One of them will be an arts-oriented school. The other 6 will be for STEM. So it's a STEAM program. And we're going to build them. And we say they're STEM schools because they will be built up front with the necessary labs to integrate the teaching of science and mathematics. So the labs are not an afterthought. The way in which the classrooms will be built will be designed for collaboration. Ergonomics will be thought of. These kinds of issues will be built in upfront. They will not be built as small schools. I'm going to say something here that might surprise you. The schools that give us the best results, generally, there are small schools that do well, but the schools that give us some of the best results are actually larger schools. Think about it, especially at the PEP level. There are schools with larger, in other words, there is a notion that smaller class sizes give you better outcomes. I'm not challenging that. That could be that could be accurate. But it doesn't say that a larger school size doesn't give you better results. In other words, you could have a large school with small classes. All right? What matters is the school leadership. And the schools that are larger tend to have better school leadership. And why are they larger? Because parents are choosing to send their children to those schools that have better leadership. Because we've gone to schools with less than 200 kids, less than 20 in the class, and the results are not comparable. Right? So a lot of it depends on the school leadership. So we're building new schools with the upfront understanding that we have to turn these into academies with a system that is quite different from the current Education Act to ensure that we get the best quality school leaders in these institutions. The government can't spend billions of dollars to build schools and don't get the results from them because somehow they have been captured for other purposes than education. So I want to make that absolutely clear, that these schools will not be run on the Standard Education Act. These will be academies with their own framework to guarantee the highest level of performance of both the students, the teachers, and the school leadership. This is how Jamaica will ensure that we have a new generation of Jamaicans who are leaving school with an elevated understanding of the world, of their community, and of themselves. That there is a new culture of work, respect, efficiency, and innovation. A new, braver Jamaica who sees themselves as equal to anyone else, who can stand on any platform and articulate in clear language that is what we are going to create. And we start by the school plant and the school leadership. So I would love to have addressed energy and all the other things that we're doing, but you get the point. So we're using the dividends from the economic growth to create a secure environment, and then we use that secure environment to create a socially just environment, and that social justice comes through health and education. And then we use the energy to solve the energy problem with the electricity bill so high and the cost per kilowatt so high. We have to solve that. Then that now gives us greater productivity in terms of our manufacturing and production capabilities. And then when you put everything together, you start to see a new Jamaica emerging, one that's economically strong and resilient in terms of our public financing, one that's safe and secure, one that's socially just, and one that is manufacturing and technology productive because we have brought down the price of energy. If you put all of that together, that's a different Jamaica than the Jamaica that existed 10 years ago, and we are on that path. Thank you very much for listening, ladies and gentlemen.
Thank you so much, Prime Minister, and thank you, Minister, for your contributions to this community gathering. Before, the Prime Minister and the Minister have indicated that we also have to run because there's another event. But before I do so, I just want to invite someone who's very special in this community up front here. She doesn't even know I'm going to call on her. She doesn't even know that I know that she's here. But she's a Jamaican who has contributed significantly to education in Guyana. Sister, I know you're there smiling, but from my understanding, please, could you join me up here? I just want us to say, this is Sister Marie Harper. Am I correct?
Very correct.
And you're an Ursuline. I didn't even pronounce that correctly. Sister, and she is Jamaican and has made a significant contribution to education in Guyana as the founder of the Marian Academy. Am I correct with that? As well, over 30 years ago. And she has shaped the lives of many persons. And so I take this opportunity to say thank you so much. And thank you for waving that Jamaican flag high.
Always. Thank you.
So thank you so much, sister. I just feel as though we couldn't leave here today without acknowledging.